Hey, welcome back to the show. If you are joining us live, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to talk with you today. And if you are listening to this on your podcast or watching the video replay on YouTube, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and follow us wherever you listen to your podcast. Hey, so I'm super excited to be talking with you all today. Today, I'm going to be sharing a little bit of a personal story and talking about this idea of restriction and sometimes over restriction of food when we are on a weight loss journey, and how that can play into the sustainability, not only of losing the weight, but keeping it off. I'm super excited to talk to you today about that. And if you would like to participate in today's show, if you are joining us on the live stream, if you have a question, be sure to go ahead and drop those into the chat now. We're going to start answering those questions here in a little bit. So again, if you're watching this on the live stream, go ahead and drop those questions into the chat. And if you're watching this on replay or listening to us on the podcast and would like to join us live as a caller on the show, feel free to follow the link in the description of this video or the show notes. All right, so again, super excited to talk with you today. Look forward to answering your questions as well as sharing a little bit of insight. I was traveling up to Jacksonville, getting my tooth worked on a few weeks ago, and wanted to share a little story today about an experience that I had at a Whataburger. But first, we'll go ahead and take a brief moment to thank the sponsor, or a word from the sponsor of today's episode. We'd like to thank today's sponsor, Premier Protein. If you've been following my journey for a while, you know how important it is for me to find simple and effective ways to get my protein in, especially with my busy lifestyle. That's where Premier Protein comes in. This isn't just any protein shake, it's been a game changer for me. I usually break my fast with one of these. Why? Well, it's packed with 30 grams of protein and it's low in sugar, making it the perfect first meal of the day for me. It keeps me full, fuels my muscle, and supports my recovery after workout. Plus, the taste, they're really good. I've always been a fan of their cafe latte flavor, but they've got a variety of options to suit any taste. It's like having a treat without the guilt. And for those of you who are always on the go like me, Premier Protein shakes are super convenient. Just grab one on your way out the door and you're set. So if you're looking to support your fitness goals and need a convenient, tasty way to up your protein intake, give Premier Protein a try. Trust me, your taste buds and your muscles will thank you. And remember, it's all about progress over perfection. So again, thank you to the sponsor of today's episode, Premier Protein. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about nutrition today and an experience that I had a few weeks ago when I went up to Jacksonville to get my final implant put in. And as I was leaving Jacksonville, there was a Whataburger that I drove by, and I was thinking about, since I have been making these videos, I think I may have only eaten Whataburger once or twice and filmed it when I was living up in Jacksonville. Unfortunately, Whataburger isn't down here in Melbourne, Florida. I know that's a big Texas thing. They made a push into Florida a few years ago, and unfortunately, a lot of them closed down, but they still got them up in Jacksonville. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was Whataburger, and there's a specific meal that I had there that I really do remember and attribute some of my success in weight loss, and not only losing the weight, but maintaining it. And it was this idea. Anytime I have ever had success losing weight in the past, I was always somebody that was over restrictive, and I embodied that all or nothing mentality. Now, if you look at my weight loss during those periods in my life where I would eat very clean, very restrictive, the scale was always moving in the right direction. I have always been good at losing weight. I have been absolutely terrible about maintaining weight loss. So take you back to 2020. It was April, May timeframe. I was around 270 pounds. Like, okay, I need to do something different. I had been and ridden the weight loss roller coaster more times than I can count. I was like, okay, I need to do something different. I started with intermittent fasting, and it was one that I went to just because I appreciate the flexibility. And for me, of all the diets that I had ever tried in the past, intermittent fasting was one that I had tried before. And of everything that I tried, it was the one for me that I kind of enjoyed the most. It wasn't so hard that I couldn't see myself doing it long term. But in my first 3 weeks, again, before I had kind of developed these ideas of slow and steady. In my first 3 weeks, I did intermittent fasting, and I was a little restrictive, trying to eat clean in that time. And I was working at the time. I had a job where I was out seeing customers, and I drove by a Whataburger, and I was about 3 weeks into fasting. I was like, man, I really want a double Whataburger with cheese and some jalapenos. I love their fries, their spicy ketchup. And I don't know, just driving by it, I absolutely did want one. And I pulled over and I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this. I'm going to have this meal. At the time, I had fasted about 16 or 17 hours. It was around noon, 1 o'clock, regular lunchtime. And I was like, okay, well, I've already fasted. I'm going to go ahead and have this meal. But I remember I didn't just go straight to the drive-thru. I parked in the parking lot of the Waterburger, and I had a little pep talk with myself because I knew the thing that I have always struggled with weight loss is the mindset portion of it. And that, for me, was more important than the nutrition, the calories, the exercise. It was all those things we tell ourselves. So I sat in the parking lot and I just had a little conversation with myself saying, you know what? I have completed my fast. I'm going to go. I'm going to have this meal and it's going to be okay. I'm not going to allow this meal to derail all of my future progress, which is something that I have done so many times in the past. Anytime I've been super restrictive, I would eat something that wasn't quote unquote on plan, and I would feel so much guilt and shame over that, that I would eat bad for days and weeks after because, hey, I shouldn't have had the Whataburger. And then those are the things that I'm telling myself. I took a moment and I said, you know what? I'm going to have this. I'm going to enjoy it. And because I was tracking calories, I want to keep an eye on, I don't want to overeat in a day. I had a Whataburger, double Whataburger with cheese, a large fry, the spicy ketchup, and I think I even had a milkshake. But at the end of that, I had had my calories for the day, and I started my fast a little earlier. So then I fasted from like 2 o'clock until noon the next day. I did a longer fast. I don't always advocate that anymore, but the point being, I found a way to fit in the food that I wanted and didn't allow it to become a stumbling block. So that was kind of, when you hear me talk about, don't over restrict, the reason for that is a lot of the times the guilt and the shame around the food does way more damage than the calories. You've got to find a way to be able to fit in some of those foods that you want. Now, here it is, 4 years later, and I was in Jacksonville 3 weeks ago. I was thinking about taking the opportunity to film a 1 meal a day video at Whataburger, because if you watch my videos, if I ever do eat at a chain restaurant, those videos do tend to do well. So I try to mix those in occasionally. And I thought, man, if I do a 1 meal a day at Whataburger, it's going to be a good video and it's going to do well. But I ended up passing on the Whataburger, and here is why. And here's another just thing that I was thinking about was like, just because I can have it doesn't mean I need to either. The same way that I was able to say yes to it before, I am now at a place where I can pass on it and feel okay about it too. And I just thought that was a nice kind of full circle moment. Now, I'm not somebody that is ever finishing my journey. I'm always a work in progress. That's why you see me continue to post these videos. But just something that I wanted to share, just because you can have something, that also doesn't mean you have to. And the biggest thing is you can't let the idea that any single meal or any single choice is going to either get you to your goal or derail you from your progress. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you today. I thought it was just a neat moment and wanted to share it with you all. So again, if you are joining me on the live stream, I really appreciate it. We're now going to I'm going to take some questions from those of you that are joining us live on the YouTube channel. So we'll go ahead and take some questions from the audience. So the first question comes in from Emily, and Emily asks, is there a difference between intermittent fasting and OMAD? So intermittent fasting and OMAD, intermittent fasting is essentially, it's a form of, there's a lot of terms for it. Time-restricted feeding is another name it's known for. It's essentially going periods of the day without consuming calories. That is The overall definition, you can get into clean and dirty fasting, but it's essentially going portions of the day without consuming calories. And it's intermittent because typically it happens day to day to day, but those periods of abstaining for food happen repeatedly. Now, those periods can change anywhere from, 12 to 20 hours. There's not a set time for intermittent fasting. It is just intermittent. Now, OMAD, or 1 meal a day, typically is when you're consuming all your calories in a single sitting. For me, I say, if I sit down to eat, even if it's an appetizer, a main course, and a little bit of dessert, even if that takes place over an hour and a half, I still consider it OMAD. OMAD falls within the umbrella of intermittent fasting. So OMAD is just a longer fasting window and a shorter feeding window. But OMAD and intermittent fasting, I use them synonymously. OMAD is just a more specific feeding window, meaning you are eating over a shorter period of time, where intermittent fasting, maybe I stop eating at 8 p.m. and I start eating at noon. Preppy Girl says, are you a Christian, and how did you stop midnight snacks? So 2 questions there. And the first one, so I am a Christian. I was saved when I was 14 years old, was involved in a youth group. I was invited out by some friends at the middle school that I went to, stayed in a youth group all through junior high and high school. I was saved at 14. I am a believer. Carrie and I are members of a church, but more importantly, it is very important to me to have a personal relationship with Christ. So, I am absolutely open about it. So yes, I am a Christian. And then as far as midnight snacks and how did I stop that? So I, in the past, have been a late night snacker. If you were to look in Carrie and I's fridge at any point in our marriage, I think you'll see a decent amount of ice cream in there. And I think I, like a lot of people, enjoy a little bit of ice cream at the end of the day, maybe some potato chips. I've cut out a majority of that. And one of the ways that I was able to cut that out was with fasting. Because I push my meals until later in the day, I do keep an eye on calories. I try not to be over restrictive, but because I practice intermittent fasting, it really allows me to have a few more substantial meals versus more frequent, smaller meals. So for me, I tend to eat probably 50% of my calories in the last few hours of my eating window. So for me, what that looks like is I could eat anywhere from, 800 to 1,400 calories between 6 and 8 p.m. at night. Unless I'm doing OMAD, I could do, all 1,800 calories, 18 to 2,200 calories in those 2 hours, which for me, I have found that helps me reduce my snacking after dinner. If I were to eat, a breakfast, a lunch, a light breakfast, a light lunch, a light dinner with a few light snacks in between, now I'm only getting, 500 to 600 calories in that 6 to 8 p.m. window. So if I'm staying up late, I try to get to bed by 10, but if I'm not, I go to bed hungry, which is going to cue me to want to eat. So fasting has absolutely helped me with my late night snacking. All right, Gabe asked, do you have loose skin, or was the weight loss just overeating and puffiness? So I personally don't have too much loose skin. I have a few stretch marks, especially everybody where you carry your fat, where your body fat is positioned on your body is absolutely a genetic thing. And me, it's my belly and it's my back right here. I'll have some love handles showing up when I start putting on a little bit of weight. So I've got some stretch marks back here, but I personally have not experienced too much loose skin. But with that being said, I also, I have maintained in that 210 range over the last few years. I still have some weight that I probably could lose. If I got down to my smallest I've ever been as an adult was about 180. If I got there, maybe I'd have some loose skin, but that's not I'm not just chasing a number on the scale right now. I'm comfortable in what I wear. I'm able to wear the clothes that I want. And most importantly, I'm able to be active and do things with my girls. So it's not something that I personally have experienced, losing about 60 pounds. And if it is something that you're concerned about, again, I'm not the person to say it because it's not what I've experienced. But if I had to venture a guess, it would be, talk to people that have a lot of loose skin from losing a lot of weight. And I think the positives for what it does for your health could outweigh some of the negatives as far as loose skin and stuff like that. So Micah asks, what is the best place to have steak? So I love that question. I love steak. I just got a comment the other day asking about, do I ever get tired of steak? And unfortunately, I don't get a reply to every comment. So I apologize if you ever have a burning question that I'm not able to answer. But if you really do have a burning question, I encourage you to join this show. We are going to start recording these lives so you can join us live, ask the question in the chat, or if you want to join us as a caller on the show, feel free to follow the link in the description of the video, the show notes. But as far as the steak goes, I got that question the other day, and I don't get tired of steak too much just because it is something that I really enjoy. So as far as where to get the best steak, I think I will go kind of 2 tiers based off of your budget. So if you are on a budget looking for a great economical steak, I love Texas Roadhouse. I'm not sponsored by Texas Roadhouse. I have never done a sponsored video by Texas Roadhouse. I wish I would. If you know anyone at Texas Roadhouse, please reach out. I'd love to work with you because I love the restaurant. But I always feel like that's a decent deal. And their sirloin, the 16-ounce sirloin, which they jacquard, which is a method of like sticking needles in the steak to tenderize it. It makes it, typically sirloins are not that tender. The Texas Roadhouse sirloin, the flavor is great, and it's tender, and it's pretty affordable for a 16-ounce steak. That's probably my best economical steak. If you just want a solid, it's going to be good every time, Texas Roadhouse sirloin. Now, if I'm going to spend a little more money, what I like to do, just the best steaks I've ever had, and I've had them from a few different butcher shops, but find you a good local butcher shop where you can go in and get a prime cut ribeye. And I have had some amazing prime ribeyes, USDA graded prime ribeyes. I get them cut thick, cook those in the sous vide, put a sear on them in the cast iron. They can be anywhere up to between $30 and $50 a pound, which is expensive. But if you were to buy it at a local butcher shop, you can get a 16-ounce ribeye for $50 a pound, which may seem like a lot. But if you were to go out to a steakhouse like a Ruth's Chris or one of those, that's probably a $160 steak. So if you have the stuff to cook it at home, those are the best steaks I've ever tasted, are the ones that I've bought a great quality cut of meat and cooked it myself. How many times a week do I work out? So this is coming in from Cynthia. Hey, Cynthia, always love seeing you in the comments. Again, I don't have the opportunity to reply to every comment anymore. And I'm now at the point where I don't even get to see every comment anymore. But there are certain people that I see commenting on the videos pop up and again. I know, Cynthia, you are one of them. So it's great to see you in the show and joining me today. I think you're up in St. Augustine, if I'm not mistaken. But how many times a week do I work out and for how long? So I would say over the last few years, that has varied a little bit. But on average, I try to work out 2 times a week. If depending on what your current workout routine is like, if you're doing nothing currently, if you could work out 2 times a week, but stay consistent with that over the course of years and the rest of your life, that's going to do a lot more good than, say, working out 4 to 5 days a week. You do it for a month, you burn out, and then you wait 6 months to go back again. So I personally adhere to that as well. 2 to 3 times a week. I do have periods, though. I think last summer was probably one of them. If I have a little more time on my hands, I may get to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, but I always recommend you start with 2, you do that consistently, and then as life allows it, try to get in a little more. But I am I'm a little on the busier side now, so I'm probably closer to that too. But I'll also say over the last 3 years, I have put on more muscle than I have in my entire life. And I haven't done anything special except I have now been consistent for years at a time. All right. So our next question coming in, and what is the first step needed to get started? So I love this question, and my advice, I'm going to give you two things. I'm going to give you a mindset thing to get started, Natalie. Again, first step needed to get started. I'm going to give you a mindset thing that you have to think about, but then I'm going to give you an actual action item. So the first thing that you need to get started on a weight loss journey, and this is where I'm going to challenge you a little bit, is you have to take that long-term approach. I know we are just wired to want things and to want them right away. But sometimes it is that desire that hinders us in the long term, because the ultimate goal isn't to get there as fast as possible. The ultimate goal is to build the habits that have you not only lose the weight, but keep it off for the rest of your life. In order to make that possible, you have to know from the outset you are going to encounter some issues, some setbacks, some things you've got to figure out. But if you put a time frame on yourself, you're just putting added stress that you don't need. So the first thing you got to do on a mindset side of things is you really do have to commit to the long-term approach. You've got to know slow and steady absolutely wins the race. If you could lose all the weight you wanted to, if I could just snap my fingers and have you lose all the weight that you wanted to in the next month, but 2 years from now, you were guaranteed to, put that weight back on, maybe plus some. Or if you were to take the next 3 years to lose 20 pounds, but then once you lose it, you keep it off for the rest of your life. So that's the first thing, is you have to adopt that long-term approach. That is what's going to keep you committed on those weeks where you're gaining weight or it's hard. If it's hard and you already know it's going to take longer, well, then you're committed to figuring it out. If you don't do that from the outset, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to say, this didn't work. I'm not going to lose this weight by summer vacation. And then you're going to stop trying altogether. And when you stop trying, that's when you really lose. So that's the mindset thing. As far as your first action item, so if you are interested in intermittent fasting, again, intermittent fasting is not the only way to lose weight. It is my preferred method because for me, it's really simple. It's really easy. It's something that I can maintain long term. If intermittent fasting is your approach, my recommendation is just start with 14 to 16 hours. And that's the only thing that I want you to do for the next month. So stop eating at 8 p.m. Don't start eating again until noon. During that time, you're free to, drink whatever you want as long as it's 0 calorie. I'm not even concerned about diet soda. I'm drinking a diet soda right now. Not a sponsor. Again, Sunkist, reach out. My favorite diet soda of all times. I'm fasting right now. I had a diet soda today. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Just no calories for 16 hours. And that's all I want you to do for the next month. And here's why that's important. The real way that you are going to lose weight and keep it off is by building habits that you don't go back on. One of the reasons that I love fasting is it does help us to restrict our overall calories, which is important to losing weight, but also it does bring a mindfulness to food, right? Like it teaches you that you don't always have to be eating. When you start fasting and realize how many times you were eating out of habit, it really is eye-opening. So that's all I'd want you to do for the next month, because I want you to get to the point that you are fasting without thinking about it, meaning you are doing it on repeat just because it's part of who you are. You do that for a month, and then you can look at your next healthy habit. And there's a ton of healthy habits. There's walking 10,000 steps a day. There's cutting out all processed things. There's cutting out sugars. There's drinking a gallon of water. There's doing a morning meditation. There's doing cold plunges. There's so many things that you could do. Just fast for the first month and then decide what the next thing that you're going to focus on. Now, if you're not interested in fasting, if you're just on a weight loss journey and you want to know where to get started, apply that same idea to your first step. Pick a first step that you can integrate into your life pretty seamlessly and just keep that up. And then implement the next one. Don't try to change your life overnight. Ethan says, how can I build habits of not taking the scale so seriously? Even when I am making progress, if I weigh in and have gained a small bit of weight, natural fluctuation, it cripples me. So, Ethan, you are absolutely not alone. I think there are a lot of people that can relate to the struggles around scale. And matter of fact, Josh, go ahead and take a note. Josh, the producer of the show, we could have an entire show and talk about the scale and what part that plays. Exactly, like what part that plays in weight loss. But I love this question. And the answer is, there are different things for different people, but one of the things to understand is that the scale is not the thing that you can affect. The scale is the result. The action is the thing that you can affect. So if you can really internalize, like, what I see on the scale, I don't have control over, meaning like you can't directly affect it. You can't affect the actions. So then we go back to action. So for me, one of the actions that I do is fasting. I track my fasts. I track them every day. When I was losing weight, I tracked my calories just to make sure that I wasn't eating in a surplus. And understand that those things that you can control, the actual actions, are the ones that you need to focus on. So there's that. Then what you need to tell yourself is, if my actions are in line and the scale is not, it does just take a little bit of self-talk, saying like, I have been doing the right things. Even though the scale's up a little bit, I'm not going to focus on the things that I can't control. I'm going to continue with my actions. Now, if you are making the right actions over a long period of time, the other thing is the scale can fluctuate multiple pounds over the course of a week. Like, it is nothing to see my weight fluctuate 5 to 6 pounds over the course of a few days. I always take like the middle average. If it's super low, I don't get very excited because I know it could very easily go up tomorrow. And if it goes up tomorrow, I don't get over upset about it because I know if I stay consistent, it'll come back down. So understand that you should just focus your efforts on the things that you can affect. Now, I recognize that sometimes this is easier said than done. So try that for a little bit. Track the numbers. Tell yourself a mantra that I tell the clients that I work with. So work with people on a one-on-one basis for weight loss coaching, is the scale is just a form of measurement. It's not the only form of measurement. It is just a point of data. Now, if it comes to a point where it is distracting you, well, then maybe the answer is you don't step on it as frequently. So again, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm super excited. I'm really looking forward to this new live format. Thanks again to the sponsor of today's video, but more importantly, thank you to each and every one of you that either joined me here live or are listening to this wherever you listen to your podcast or watching on the YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe, to like us, and if you found this helpful and want to see some more segments, feel free to leave us a note, let us know, leave a comment on this video, tell us what kind of segments you'd like to see in the future. Thanks again for listening to the Progress Over Perfection podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. The show is produced by Joshua Toller. I've absolutely enjoyed talking with you today. And remember, we are not looking to lose weight fast. We're looking to lose weight forever. Thanks again, and I will catch you in the next episode.